All right, you guys. So as I said, today's going to be all about one of the coolest areas in Denver, in an area that is incredibly popular and only going to get more and more popular over the next few years. So in some senses, the cat is already out of the bag. The secret's out. What? But I still think this is an area that is worth considering if some of your priorities are being close to downtown Denver, having that perfect blend of both urban and suburban lifestyles. So, drum roll please. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Sunnyside. So Sunnyside is actually located just west of downtown Denver and just north of Sloan Lake. It's an area that is very close to where I used to live in Sloan Lake, and I've spent a lot of time just showing clients this area, as well as just personally just walking through the neighborhoods with my dog Charlie, often after work when I used to live in the Sloan Lake area. It's only about a 5 to 10 minute walk from the Sloan Lake area, so very, very close. And in fact, why I wanted to share this one with you today is a couple reasons, but primarily just because its value of being surrounded by very popular and much more expensive areas. And as I said, it's kind of a secret little nook of Denver that is definitely becoming much more popular and people are aware of it, but I think there still are a few years left to kind of get in before it just completely blows up and is one of the other more popular areas on this side of town. Again, just like Highlands, Tennyson, and Berkeley, there's just so many cool areas all around Sunnyside. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is just location. And I'm going to speak on two different points here. The first being just how it's in this great area that is surrounded by much higher property value areas like Highlands, Sloan Lake, all those areas that I've been talking about. So that's a great location just from an investment standpoint, where you're going to be investing in an area, a property that's going to have a very good, strong appreciation in both the near and also the long-term future. So from an investment standpoint, I think Sunnyside, as long as you buy it at the right price, can be a great investment for you. But what I want to speak on a little bit more in depth on is just the location being so prime and awesome for somebody that maybe is looking for that just nice area to live in, where you are very easily able to get onto the major highways and get pretty much anywhere you want to in Denver just without much difficulty. And what am I talking about here? Well, I've lived in a few different parts of Denver, and I've been just personally exposed to, despite maybe being close to I-70 or I-25, two of our main interstates here in Denver, if you live in certain parts of Denver, what happens is it takes you a while just to get through all of the side streets to get to one of the interstates. Some of the areas around Cherry Creek, for example, like Washington Park would be a good example of this too, where, yeah, it's a great location, but just to get over to I-25, if you're doing this, at the wrong time of day where there's a lot of just traffic on the roads that feed into there, you might spend 15, 20 minutes just getting to the highway before you even are going to where you need to go. What's so cool about Sunnyside is both I-25 and I-70 are both super close, where you really aren't spending much time getting stuck on the bumper-to-bumper, stoplights, all that kind of stuff. So if you are maybe working in a position at work where you're commuting or you just need to kind of get all over town, I think Sunnyside is one of the best placements in Denver for areas that have that great accessibility. And then one last thing about the location, not only are we really close to both these two highways, I-25 and I-70, you also have just the location being a little bit on the western side of town, where if you are somebody that likes to get up to the mountains, it's just that much easier. You can jump on I-70 literally within a 5-minute drive from your house, and then you're just straight shot west up to the hills. If you live out in Southeast Aurora, or maybe up north in like Thornton or Northglenn, it's just gonna take a little bit longer just to get to I-70 and get to the area where Sunnyside is, where you're getting up to the hills. It could save you, maybe 20, 30 minutes, or maybe even longer if you're going up skiing on a weekend. So start adding that up each direction. Maybe you're going skiing once a weekend. It's a significant amount of time. So, myself, I just love the outdoors. I love having a very easy, accessible road that I can just hop on and off and just get to where I want to go with ease. And like Sunnyside is one of the best areas in Denver, if that's also maybe important to you. All right, so not to go too in depth on real estate specifically on this video, but I do want to share a couple little nuggets with you guys. So last year, 2024, this was an area that had some of the highest appreciation values of one year to the next. So from 2022, 2023 to 2024, we had about a 12 to 14% overall appreciation in Sunnyside for property values. And that is significantly higher than other parts of Denver, especially these past few years, which have been very unique, where the average has been only maybe 3 to 5%. So that's just proof in the pudding that Sunnyside is definitely an area that's seeing a lot stronger appreciation than others. And a lot of that does come down to it being kind of lifted up by the areas that are surrounding it, like Highlands, Tennyson, and Berkeley, all those areas we've been talking about. The median home price in Sunnyside last year was in that $650,000 to $750,000 range, and that is a little bit lower than Highlands, which is over $800,000. So just another example of how it is a little bit lower right now, but that's going to just continue to be, lifted up with Highlands and all these other areas. So, and then I'd also like to take this a step further. When you're looking at Highlands as an example, or Sloan Lake, so many of the homes have already gone through gentrification. They've already been bought, flipped, or maybe just done a significant value add improvement to the home, where maybe initially it was a 1920 bungalow. Since then, they popped the top, made it a lot larger square footage. Those types of improvements are very, very common in Highlands and Sloan Lake. The thing is, there's just not that many opportunities to find these that haven't yet been improved. With Sunnyside, since it is a little bit earlier on into this process, you're going to find a lot more opportunities for value add and fixer-upper type opportunities to maybe get in at a lower price point and then do some of maybe this work yourself, some sweat equity, and then just over time, improve the property that way. If Highlands and Sloan Lake have been on your radar and you've just been really having a hard time finding anything that kind of matches what I'm speaking on here, I think Sunnyside is worth looking at because there just are more options. This whole neighborhood is very, very old. A lot of these 1920s bungalows, a lot of single family homes. So you also have a little bit larger lot sizes compared with other parts of Denver that are newer, like for example, up in Erie and Brighton up north, or even down in the south and southeast, like Aurora. These new build communities and just the newer homes over the last 20 years, typically those are found on smaller size lots. With Sunnyside, a lot more opportunity to maybe find a half-acre lot as an example. There are even some that have zoning where if you go in, you maybe have a large enough lot size where you could even add later on an ADU or an accessory dwelling unit and actually rent that out for an income-producing little side hustle where you can maybe help pay for your mortgage. This is something that actually just passed at the end of last year, where Denver wanted to just kind of ease some of these restrictions when it came to accessory dwelling units. So before, this was a lot of red tape, very difficult to accomplish, but now it's much more easy for people that have the right lot size and just have the right scenario going on where they can potentially add something like this into their backyard, and whether it be an additional unit for just your own use, maybe it's a mother-in-law unit that you just want to have some family come stay with you occasionally and have their own kind of private area. Or like I said, it could even be to the point where you're renting it out and helping pay for your mortgage. So something that you can't really do in that many areas in Denver just logistically, but I think Sunnyside is one of the few areas, I think a lot of them are on this western side of town, where this is a little bit more of a possibility. Not to go down a rabbit hole, but other areas, if I'm speaking your language right now, other areas that also would be worth looking into for these value add opportunities and even adding an ADU to the property would also be worth checking out Arvada, Wheat Ridge, Lakewood, and just any of those areas that are a little bit to the west, because those are some of these other older neighborhoods that are built, 100 years ago at this point, and back then they typically did have a little bit larger lot sizes. So little tip for you, definitely look into that if that's something that you're interested in. So another reason why I think Sunnyside is awesome is if you're a foodie like I am and you just like to try new restaurants, you just like to have maybe an area where it's walkable, where from your home you can hop on your bike or maybe just literally walk a couple blocks and have, local type restaurants that aren't the big chains and, that kind of stuff. Sunnyside is awesome for this too. There's a ton of heritage in Sunnyside in two different communities. Not only very, very strong Italian community, but also a lot of Latin American and Hispanic. So some of my favorite restaurants kind of hit both of these. I've done other videos on this before as well, but Gaetano's is one of my absolute favorite Italian restaurants, mainly just because of the history that is attached to the building where it's at. It's right on the corner, you can't miss it, big Gaetano's sign, and it's been there for probably 50 or 60 years, if not even longer. And they have some really cool pictures in there from people that used to frequent the place, like Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., even some of the gangsters from back in the day. There's even some rumors that they have some underground kind of meeting rooms where some of these mobsters used to congregate and have some of these kind of secretive get-togethers. Not sure if that's true or not, but just give you a little bit of context into what makes that specific restaurant, Gaetano's, so cool. So in addition to that Italian influence, there's also a ton of Hispanic and Latin American influence in Sunnyside, and lots of great restaurants that go along there with it. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore, but my favorite restaurant as a kid for years was a restaurant called La Loma. And I've also actually shared La Loma in other videos and other emails that I send out to my community. But La Loma is so special because they do a homemade tortillas. It's just an incredible spot. And they used to have kind of their flagship store, their flagship restaurant right here in Sunnyside. Good news is they still are open. There's actually a couple locations. There's one downtown Denver, right across from the Brown Palace, which is an awesome hotel if you've never been there. And then also they have a new location down south near Highlands Ranch. So if La Loma is something that just is really high on your bucket list to check out, there are still options for you to check La Loma out. So definitely do that, and let me know what you guys think. I think it's an amazing restaurant. I hope you guys do too. So one other aspect that I want to talk a little bit more about is just that community that Sunnyside really has. And this is something that's rare these days. You know, a lot of parts of Denver, as Denver continues to grow, are these newer built communities, and I love those for certain aspects. But one of the negatives or the cons of these new build communities and just areas that are much more recently built, they just don't have that same deep-rooted appreciation that I think Sunnyside is really, to a T, what it really is all about. You know, people that are in Sunnyside, a lot of them have been there for 50, 60, 70 years. And because of that, they're just very proud and really just take a lot of pride and care into their homes and just love being in Sunnyside and don't plan on going anywhere. So I think that, you know, as I lived in Sloan Lake close to here and I spent a lot of time walking through Sunnyside, I just really took note of this a lot. And you could just tell when you walk through the streets, you know, a lot of the front yards are really well kept. You'll see neighbors that still wave to you. There's just a different vibe. And this is something that's hard to kind of get across over a video to you guys, but something that is definitely there and something that I think has a lot of value to it. You know, maybe it doesn't necessarily increase the property value, but it does something, at least in my opinion, to being in that area. And it's something that I love. I love having that. You don't find that much anymore. And I think Sunnyside is one of these small kind of communities in Denver that still has it. Still has that it factor. So if that's something else you guys think is important to you, I think Sunnyside is worth definitely checking out. So if some of you guys might have families that maybe have some younger kiddos and you're also just really putting education high on your importance list, when it comes to Sunnyside, North High School is what most students feed into. If you want to get a little bit more accurate data on how North ranks among other schools in Denver, check out niche.com. I share that in a lot of my videos because it's just a great resource. But I have some friends that when I went to school in Wheat Ridge, which is west of here, we had a lot of interaction with people that lived in this North High School community. And I think North is really seeing a lot of improvements at the school. There's been a lot of renovations over the last few years, and I think because of all of this investment into the community with homes being improved and remodeled, and just there's a lot of just action going on in Sunnyside. I think that's also affecting the quality of the schools and kind of lifting that up as well. So definitely worth checking out niche.com if you want to look a little bit more into the schools in this area. But there's also a lot of great parks. So if you're a family and you're also really, putting a lot of importance onto just having some open spaces around you and being able to, go spend an hour after work with your kiddos or just maybe with your dog or your significant other. There's a lot of really, really nice parks all around the Sunnyside area. Sloan Lake is probably my favorite just because I spend a lot of time there. It's about 2.2 miles to go all the way around the lake, but it's so easy to get to when you're in Sunnyside. But I also really like another great spot, which is the Platte River. And the Platte River is just right out your back door if you are living in Sunnyside. And this Platte River Trail actually goes miles and miles and miles. If you get on the Platte River Trail from Sunnyside and you actually just go south, you can take it all the way to Cherry Creek Reservoir if you want, which is probably 15 miles, if not a little bit longer, significant distance. So Platte River Trail, though, has a lot of shorter routes that you can take, including taking it just straight to the Broncos Stadium to check out a football game on a Sunday. You could also go very easily to the Ball Arena, which is where our Denver Nuggets and also our Colorado Avalanche play. So you just have all this stuff all around you with very easy accessibility and just a lot of great outdoor spaces to enjoy once you are in this neighborhood and you just want to, relax for a bit after work. All right, so to wrap this up, let's just talk through a couple of these high-level points that I've shared with you today. First off, it's all about location, and this is an area in Sunnyside that is still a little bit earlier on in the game, where if you are looking for opportunities for appreciation in home values as well as getting in early before it completely blows up in popularity, definitely check out Sunnyside. If you want to kind of compare that with other areas that have already kind of gone through this process, look into Highlands and Sloan Lake, which are the very direct neighbors to Sunnyside, as well as the Tennyson-Berkeley area, which is just north of Sunnyside. This is definitely an area that has a ton of community, being that deep-rooted culture with both Italian and Hispanic communities. Just a lot of pride, a lot of great restaurants, and just a lot of influence in this neighborhood that you're gonna find that I think has a lot of culture and just a lot of just value to it. And like I said earlier, maybe you can't put a price tag on that, but I think it's very important when looking for the best neighborhood for you. And then last but not least, just talking through how this is a great area to identify fixer-uppers and value-add opportunities because of this older community of homes. A lot of these were built in the early 1900s, and since there is such a strong, passionate, loyal community that lives here, a lot of the people that have lived in these homes, they've been there for a very long time. And some of these people are getting to the point now where they're just at the age where they need to move into an assisted living or maybe downsize. And there's a lot of turnover happening right now because of that. And these are great options to find homes that haven't yet been improved and redeveloped, where you can go in, maybe do some of the work yourself, or maybe look into getting creative with adding a pop top, meaning expanding the square footage of the actual primary dwelling. Or since there are a lot of the lot sizes are bigger, also considering adding an ADU so you can have potentially an income producing little side hustle, little area in your home that you can rent out, or just have it available for a private space for guests, or maybe your mother-in-law or father-in-law to come stay at when you guys have guests and visitors. So just lots of great reasons and a lot of different types of potential buyers that might find Sunnyside attractive. So if any of this is, kind of hitting you guys on the head and really feel like this is a spot for you, feel free to reach out. All that info down below. I'm available 24/7. Email me, text me, give me a call, whatever is most convenient for you. And even if you're not seriously looking right now, even if it's something that maybe is just, you're considering moving to Denver, I love still the opportunity just to connect with you guys. So what's really popular is a lot of people will just schedule a 30-minute real estate strategy session with me. It's just, no pressure. It's just a call just for us to get to know each other a little bit. And I know for a fact I can provide you guys with some more value in one way or another. I'm a 42-year Colorado native. I've been in Denver my whole life, and I would just love the opportunity to share a little bit more about why I love the Mile High City and why hopefully it might be a great spot for you guys as well. Look forward to sharing an all-new episode with you guys next week on Living in Denver. Until then, have a good rest of your day, great rest of your week, and I'll see you then. Bye.